Mr. Blicksmath, you're brave. You got on the Reddit 3D Studio Max forum and you, whatever subreddit, I don't care, and asked to be roasted for your portfolio. That's a good idea in a lot of ways, but I think you could supply a little bit more information so you know what kind of burn you're getting, because you know, even Gordon Ramsay, he curates his burns for a seasoned professional, a restaurant owner, a manager, or even little kids when he's bossing them around and trying to encourage them. So I'm gonna take that approach where I see you not as a little kid, but as a little 3DS Maxer, and I'm gonna help you instead of just shitting on you, which you're asking for because you might be coming from like a low place, like you might be unhappy with the work that you're creating, you don't understand how to go to the next level or how to get a job or all these things, and they all kind of feed into each other. So I'm gonna try to help you more. I started typing and I was like, no, you know what, I've been wanting to do this for a while, so I'm gonna just make a video and I'm gonna try to help you out and maybe some other people. So some of the responses that people are giving are okay. They're doing literally what you asked, which is totally fine. Some are kind of funny, some are not. But I think that I'm just gonna jump in and then go through a couple things on what you should watch out for. So first of all, for me, it's information, and I will keep a running tab of this information. These are things to try out, things to incorporate, things to do. First, what I would say is supply more information. Supply more information. It's very important because people don't know what you're going for. We know that you're in visualizing and designing. We know that you like cars. We know that you like interiors. We know that you like 3D, and that's about all that we know. I think this one has the most information that is personal, but it might be too personal and not about the correct information that people would be wanting, for example. So people want to know about your project, not so much about your deep-seated desires. It's kind of like when you go and you look for a recipe on the internet and someone tells you some bullshit story about their grandma in 1974 that has no information. When people just want the facts, they want the information that is most applicable to them. So I do wish that you do get your car that you can customize as easily as you can in 3D. That'd be cool, but it probably won't happen. Anyways, okay, so first of all, outward appearances. If you're going with the word awful studios, as in like terrible, as in bad, as in
Awful. Awful.
that's fine, or as in the Urban Dictionary definition,
Synonyms: I'm stupid, I can't spell, I'm illiterate. It's spelled awful.
you get it. You spelled awful wrong. So if you're really actually terrible and you're really actually bad and that's what you want to go with, spell your thing right. AWFUL is awful in English, but maybe there's a pun. Like maybe you could be full of awe, which is where awful comes from, but you could be awful, or maybe you could just like try to play with your brain a little bit and whoa, spell right. Maybe change your name for a year to Awesomefull or something like that to get out of the mindset of being bad. Because if you think you're bad, you're only going to be as good as what you think you are, in my opinion. I don't know what other people think about that, but that's what I feel. So just start lying to yourself and calling yourself something else. So I'm going to come over here and I'm going to find this little thingy here. All right. I'm going to right click on it. Awful Studios. All right, now you're Awesomefull Studios. It doesn't change anything. It's totally fine. It doesn't matter. But now you're no longer bad. So I've already helped you out, in my opinion. Like, you've gotten a pat on the back. Okay, now we're going to talk about the work. Well, maybe visualizing, designing. Explain a little bit more about what you do. So, Awesomefull, name correct. Spell correct is important. because anybody who's going to hire someone like us is usually by someone above us, and this is what they look for. They look for detail, attention to detail, specifics, proper spelling, proper punctuation, punctuality, honesty, all this stuff. It all like congeals into something where it's like, oh yes, I would like to work with this person. So this is the list. I will supply it to you. It doesn't matter. Okay, so be more specific in what you do and what you want to do. Great, good advice. So instead of visualizing and designing only, like expand on that. Like, do you want to be a 3D modeler? Do you want to be a 3D texturer? Do you want to work in games? Do you want to work in architecture? You could say it right. And that's some of what people said is like, what do you want to do? What's your specifics? This has changed since I first looked at it, and that's just fine. So that's that. And that's very important. That's like one of the most important things. Those things is just not thinking bad about yourself, thinking good about yourself, and showing that you think good about yourself, and being honest with where you're at. Okay, so let's just go through all the projects. The Focus RS 2009 edition. This is okay. My favorite part on this, I don't know what yours is, but for me, it's probably the fog, the headlights in the fog, which is really cool. But it's also not quite great because you've got this snowy, traction-y sand treaded up, whatever, and it doesn't look right. Like, this looks like old 3D Studio Max, like scanline render pretty much. And that's not a bad thing. I assume that you probably painted the texture maps for the car, the snow. I don't know if you modeled the car. I don't know if you modeled the land. I don't know if you did the effects. But you can list out things. So let's just call this the Ford Focus RS. And just explain what you did. I was responsible for ... modeling, texturing, lighting, atmosphere. That can help people know what they're supposed to be looking at in relation to your work. Also, perhaps put some wireframes if you did model it. I don't know. You can put the 4K textures or 8K or whatever texture resolution you're using. You can show your texture map like unwrapped. If you did a good job. But if you didn't do a good job, you shouldn't show it. And this is a project that should probably be at the end of your portfolio, probably, because it's so, I don't know what to say, generic or baseline, sort of. It's hard to say. One thing I will definitely say is that overall, if you look at your images, they're kind of on the dark side. If you squint your eyes, you can start to see values. And this is very, very, very dark. This is very dark. This is very dark. This is pretty dark, I would say. Like, most of the image is not the car, and that's dark. This is pretty darn dark. So that's something that I will quickly show you how to do. And I assume that you're using V-Ray. It's possible you're using Mental Ray on like a stolen version of 3D Studio Max or whatever, but it doesn't really matter what you use. You just need to watch out for the end of it. So one thing I will say for sure is to use more Photoshop. Alan McKay says to push to comp, like get stuff to the final thing sooner so you know what you're working with, and then you can tweak what you're doing in 3D Studio Max to fit that final thing better. And I think that's really good advice in this case. One thing that I am seeing with all of these kind of examples is that everything is kind of a straight on. So this is like all feeding in to use Photoshop more. Everything is a straight on shot, almost everything. This is a straight on shot. These are both straight on shots. This is very straight, like eye level. But if you bring stuff into Photoshop, you can start playing with things a little bit more and come up with a little bit more possibly dynamic ideas that might just add a little bit more energy to your thing. You did such a good job on the volumetrics and the snow. I don't know why that's not present here. Like, that's something that you probably could do. All right, let's just look for a generic lens flare on black. Okay, let's just put this one in there. And it doesn't matter if it's a still from a video. It doesn't matter anything. You can start to use these things a lot easier in Photoshop than trying to wait for a stupid 3D Studio Max to process it, or using the right plugins, or whatever problem you're going to end up having. Whatever problem you're going to end up having. There we go. Screen. That's what I want. There we go. All right. Here we go. This is awesome. But first, you know, of course, you got to do a little mask paint out. It doesn't matter. It really doesn't matter. You can do a much better job of this. But I'm just showing you how you can use Photoshop to get your shit a little bit better, a bit faster. Okay, that's much better. Now we've got 2 headlights. Now we've got 3 headlights. All right. And maybe these 2 are smaller. Oh yeah, Photoshop changed. You don't have to hold shift anymore to constrain proportions. Or I should enable the feature that lets you go back to regular. Oh, come on, but just deselect the fucking layer, you bastard. Alright, here we go. So that's not bad. That's not bad. You can put all these in a group. I don't like the color, so you can do like a hue saturation. And this is stuff where in Photoshop, or I mean in 3D Studio Max and doing renders, depending on what you're using, you could waste all of your time. Clip it to just that layer. You could waste all of your time just screwing around with getting your lenses to look right and having to render, and it's just going to kill your performance. I'm trying to match it to your background, but I don't really like that because the background is a little bit too dark, a little bit too gray. So one thing that I like to check is to put the exposure on here. I don't know what the case is, but in Mental Ray, you would render stuff and it would come out with an exposure. You're supposed to use Gamma 2.2 or whatever, and it ends up messing up your images in different applications, and you have to kind of apply that to whatever. So you could adjust that by playing with the Gamma, and usually you'd put it to a 0.45 or it would depend on where you're coming from. Yeah, just go to default. But I want this to be a little bit brighter, a little bit more fun, not that dark. And sometimes you don't end up helping, and you can just turn it off. Okay, so that I like a little bit better. Color balance, that's what I want. I think this is too green and blue. So I'm gonna try to, I'm either gonna go with it and lean into it and make it like, you know, more Fast and the Furious style. I don't know if Fast and the Furious style is hip or what, but maybe something like that. Who knows? Who knows? Who knows? Who knows? Maybe these headlights aren't as bright or as large in the other area because it's not quite turning the same whatever. It's not quite looking at the camera. Who knows? Who knows? Okay, so that's that. One thing you can do, you can duplicate your layer, and this you can use a lot, a heck of a lot, and you just blur it. Let's go with that. That's good. And then putting it on one of these lighter ones is good. Soft light. But really what you can do and you don't know, you can just click in here. So this is highlight in blue, and you can just press up and down on your keyboard. And you can go until you see something that might look a little bit more jazzy, a little bit more fun, and sometimes it's very subtle. But oftentimes it just blends everything together a little bit more. I'm going to put these lens flares under here, and you can see how that can start affecting those. That's the exposure affecting it, and this is the color balance affecting it. But I'll just put those back on top for now. And sometimes you want to go too far, like go way too far, and then start pulling it back. If you don't know what I mean by that. So like make these headlights so they do blow out, but this one looks screwy, so we don't want that. Maybe we can lower the opacity on it a little bit. Maybe this one we can lower the opacity. So it's like, this looks like the car is turning now a little bit, like it's maybe drifting into this shot or something, but it's a little bit more dynamic than... Go back to this one. Copy image. We'll just put this one back in. And you can see there's just a little bit more going on with not much work. It's just Photoshop. And I know that this is, yes, zoomed in, but I'm just filling in the sides of that extra frame that are not available because I don't have the 3D model or any of that stuff. And in here, like once you're this far, you can start using a lot more of the camera tools in Photoshop, if that's what you're going for. I don't really know what you're going for, so it's really hard to say. Okay, so let's call that good for this one. But yeah, there's tons of playing that you can do. So maybe instead of color dodge, you want to like have it be daytime, mirror's edge effect, or who knows. But you can do a lot very quickly. Maybe you want to make it look more dark. Who knows? Who knows what you want to do? I don't know. I'm just trying to help you out. We don't know. We don't know anything. You know, it's like, if it's that sunny, why the hell are the headlights so bright? But who cares? And maybe like, who knows? Use more Photoshop! Exclamation point 3 times. Use elements and stock reference things. Stop doing everything in pure 3D. Like that's a funny 3D advice, but don't do pure 3D. Fake it because it's faster. A long time ago, people couldn't do shit in 3D because computers were too slow, so they had to fake it. They faked it with tons of stuff, and before that, we were faking it with matte paintings and models and miniatures and all this other stuff. But try to incorporate some of that mindset into getting work done faster. Like, we don't even know what you did on this project still. It's still just a vague, random thing. So, okay, there's that. Let's just do this one really quickly. And colors might not be coming through perfectly. That's some of the shitty stuff with Photoshop and embedding colors and being on a Windows machine. And you take what you can get and you leave what you can't, sort of. If you don't know where you can get photos to use for free, there's a thing called Unsplash, which is really great. And you can start to do a lot of stuff very quickly if you start just using stock photos. So this is almost okay. I think it's too far away. Be literal. Snowy road. Here we go. This is what you want. It's just not on the right side. Which happens. It happens, and that's okay. Let's use this one, though. You can download it for free. I'm just going to copy it because this isn't my project. I don't really care. Well, it's not that I don't care. If I didn't care, I wouldn't be doing this, but I do care. This is a teachable moment for the planet. So I am taking this moment to try and help. Okay, so something like this. And if you just lower the opacity, you can kind of, you know, get it lined up with whatever. I'm going to go all the way up to the car. And a mask. And I'm just going to fill it all in, and I'm going to paint away what I want. My opacity is not 100%, which is bad. And the layer is also not 100%, which is just fine. Okay, and now you may be saying, well, that looks like shit. Why would you do that? And it's just because you can, again, come in here, play with these things. Combine a little bit of the two, perhaps. I don't know. We don't know. We're just experimenting. Sometimes that's what you gotta do. Sometimes you can use a little bit of both. All right, and maybe we'll do, you could do a color balance or curves on this. You want it to be more blue. You only want it to apply to the bottom layer. You don't want this in there because it gets too whatever-y. So it's like, it's little things sort of, but kind of bigger overall. I think this is another one where you could probably make it a little bit more dynamic and rotate the camera. So it looks like it's maybe going uphill or going around a corner or something, but these straight on shots, while you're getting them low, it's okay. Okay, maybe you're saying something like, well, these must be some pretty fucking good headlights because they're lighting all the way to the back of the car. That's amazing. I want those headlights. You're funny. That's a really funny response. You can darken this thing up, and each of these comes with its own little layer matte, and then you can use a little gradient action. And then you can just see what you've done. Using groups in Photoshop is good, but we've already broken this up. You can come in here and you can just, you could probably blur and smush this stuff around. But let's go to the 3D Studio Max and let me show you what I'm talking about. Okay, so everything that you have in your kind of worlds that you're building, they're all like straight on eye level shots, which is totally fine. It's totally fine. But once you like what you have and you get a camera in there, there's camera tools like roll the camera, and roll the camera can do a lot for adding some dynamics, and when you have like reference objects that let people know that, oh yeah, this is like really dynamic looking, instead of select the camera, turn off roll. Like, there's something that happens when you just roll your camera just a little bit, and it's mostly because people don't hold stuff perfectly straight. I mean, we try to, but really we can't. But most ads, it's something like this, and this might, it could even end up being overused. I could be giving you bad advice, but it's something to try. These are things to try. Things to try. Rotate camera. Rotate roll camera. Here we go. Okay, so that's good. Let's put the snow back on. But using real stuff makes fake stuff look more real. If you got real snow on a car, like, this whole experiment could be for naught, because I honestly don't think snow collects on a car that much. Maybe it does. Snow gets on top of cars. This is a parked car. So if that car's parked, you'd maybe want to create this pattern where it's only on the down parts. Let's see. I think if a car is moving, you're probably not going to have that much snow on it, really, because the engine's hot, things get warm, things blow off. You can see where there's snow on this one. It's probably just out of a garage or something, so it might not be exactly what you're looking for. Here's this one, where I don't see anything, and fuck you, I'm not gonna buy an ad to look at this. But these are things to think about. Things to think about. Losing track. Use photo references. Check real world examples. And oftentimes on projects, people like to see the inspiration. They like to know the impetus, the reasoning why. So you can supply that information. You can use some shots like at the end saying, I was pulling some cues from this or whatever. Who cares? Let's go to this one. Let's do an interior maybe. Like, I honestly don't think your work is that bad. It's just feels like you just finished school perhaps, and that you've had the programs for a while and you want to go to the next level, which is really good, but don't give up, I would say. All right, anyways, let's look at this. A personal interior, that's fine, but it for me, if someone says personal, then it sounds like that they're not busy enough and they're just filling up their portfolio, and in a lot of ways that's what we're doing. That's what you are doing. That's what you need to do. These are ones where you definitely maybe don't want to go crazy with the camera on all of them, but maybe some of them you could to have it be a little bit more interesting. I'm just seeing that this right here, the seam of this exterior wall, there's a crack to the outside. But the biggest thing with this is like, why the fuck is the lamp in the way of the TV? Like, if this is your house and where you want to be and where you want to exist, like, and you're sitting down here, why would you want to look at a lamp instead of your TV? Like, it doesn't make sense to me. Or like, you walk in, you're about this tall, I assume. You couldn't even walk through your space because your lamps would be in the way. That is some Gordon ass Ramsay shit, in my opinion, because it's like just borderline silly to not have this thought out in a way. So it will end up being things like this that make your interior, whether they're personal projects or not, seem really fake. Like really, really fake, because the underlying math to them is not correct. And it's, I don't want to say it's not understood, but if one thing is out of scale, it makes everything look out of scale a lot of the time. So I'm just going to fill this in. And it will, like some sort of interior design guru, tie the room together a lot. And I'm not going to do a perfect job because it's not a Photoshop lesson. Okay, but here now, it feels more open. It feels more realistic in ways to me. I don't know about to other people, but to me, it feels more realistic. These little projects don't really have a focus, I would say. There's no focus in the room. There's no focus to the project other than building a 3D room. Either making some models and texturing them. I don't know, because you didn't say. Like, definitely say what you did on here. Did you design the room? Were you occupying your current living space? Were you, beautifying your girlfriend, boyfriend's room? Or what were you doing? Why were you doing it? Helps people understand. And what did you do? Like, what actually did you do? I can't tell for sure, but to me, these bricks are really freaking big. Like, really big. And the grout is really big, or whatever, the cement, the mortar. They call it mortar with bricks. It just seems too big. If this door is like 8 feet tall, or however tall it's supposed to be, these bricks are like large, very, very large. So maybe just like working on unifying your scale. Let's put that to the list. Unify scale. See, I mess up on spelling. I just catch it in time. Unify scale. The real world. Okay. That's pretty good for that. Like this depth of field effect is kind of nice. I don't know how you have it going on, but I assume that you're doing it in camera in 3D, and that's probably just wasting time. You could just do stills and do this in Photoshop really easily. This picture is garbage. It's pretty bad. Like, it might be more cool if there was like a really neat sculpture that you did someday, like a ZBrush painting thing where there's something weird where it's like it could be a focal point of this whole room or something. But right now this picture is kind of like a throwaway. This one's almost okay, but what does it feel like? To me, it feels almost like this whole shelf should be higher. Perhaps this shelf should be higher. There's kind of like some weird reflections going on. It feels like, I don't know. This one is definitely a throwaway. Like, probably have the candles out of focus and the other part of the room in focus, maybe, or look into like playing a video where it does a rack focus or something. But you know, there's nothing in the room that ties it together, like the rug and the Big Lebowski. Like here, this painting is almost close, but unless you did the painting, you probably don't want to like premiere it or debut it or feature it or whatever their word would be. I don't know. Like, I think. Okay, here are some things on this one. This is what I've learned. That nothing in the real world is straight, and if you're going for realistic, if you have anything straight in your scene, then you're doing it wrong. Like, this table is perfectly straight to the floor. This rug is perfectly straight to the table. The chairs are perfectly straight, and they're like just on grids, like built on grids, where if you look straight down, they'd all just be cubes and rectangles, or squares and rectangles. This remote on here is perfectly aligned, like edge to the table. But when you start breaking it up, like this shape is good because it breaks it up. These are good because it breaks it up. These are good because it breaks it up. The magazines are good because they break it up. Like, they're rotated differently and they look more real. Just like these pillows. These pillows look more realistic because they're individually crinkled, bent up, smushed into the bigger form, sort of. But if you rotate each of these things just a tiny bit, or maybe rotate your camera just a tiny bit, it can add a lot more realism to your scene, I would think. Let's briefly talk about these lamp things. So in the other shot, I raised them up so it would make more sense. In this shot, it would be okay to have them here because they look good here. But when they defeat the purpose of the room, you don't want to do that. Okay, let's look at this. These day and night shots they're okay. They're kind of throwaways, and I'm positive you've seen these effects done better elsewhere. There's not quite big enough difference, I would say. This throwaway again, these magazines, doesn't show there's hardly any difference. I mean, there's hardly any difference here, really. And I think some of this comes from the way that you have your lighting coming in. Like, your lighting is also coming in from that ridiculous straight on view. Like, you've got your room. Oh, Jesus Christ. If you want to get rid of a roll, you can go to and change your viewport. You got your room, and then you've got your light. I'm just gonna, whatever. I'm gonna use old light because this is what it looks like. You just have a direct light going like perfectly straight across and coming in. Whereas if you rotate this and get this lighting shape to break up from this square and like cast a parallelogram, whatever, like more intricate, more something. And like this top thing looks like a sun. I don't know. What are they called? A skylight. That's what they're called. It looks like it's almost a skylight. Like there's so much natural light coming in this room, it doesn't feel real. So maybe some sun could be coming out of here onto this wall or something, or painting this door. But there's like, this is just so rigid and square and not intentional. It feels amateurish. Whereas like, let's see. I'm not saying that rigid and square doesn't work, because Wes Anderson makes it work, and a lot of other things like that, clean modern look, work. But it just doesn't, nothing's tying the room together. Like there's no purpose. You want to have a purpose. That would be a good thing. Have a purpose with all your projects. Okay, so this is, nothing is slightly rotate things, have a purpose to images. And I think this speaks more to some of the ones that are coming up. Okay, so this apples one, I don't know why the hell you call this apples when there's so much more in this shot. Like, who cares about the apples, honestly, when you have this much detail and like interesting moody lighting going on? So when I first saw this, what I thought of was like Gone Girl and some of the moody lighting that they have in there. And then I think a guy did a Blender tutorial remaking the kitchen or something. Maybe that's where you got this. Who knows? And it doesn't matter. But like, this is more complete feeling than that living room shot. But this is like, still, there's the focus you have are these apples that are spilt in a bowl. And the apples are kind of fucked up looking. Like, I don't know. They look weird. Maybe it's a regional thing. My apples don't look like that in America. They kind of look weird. They're not really shiny like they should be. They look a little waxy. Maybe that's normal. Who knows? But this one I think is good, but I'm going to introduce some things to you as a whatever. So when I first saw this, I was like, oh, apples, okay. And then this was the next picture, and I was like, oh, okay, that's different than what I thought. Is there going to be something just off the frame to tell the story of why the apples have spilt? Like, did someone break in? Was there a murder? Was there what terrible thing happened that let these apples fall over? Maybe there could be more things scattered around to start to tell that story. So as I was looking through these, I was like, oh, it'd be really cool if maybe there was like just a moody little creepy figure or something like that. So I'll show you what I'm talking about. And I have no idea what you want to do, but you want to give your work some purpose. Give it some purpose. So there was an artist, and he did something like this all the time, where he would either, I think he was more so incorporating things into a photograph, so it's like, it's much less work. But once you get to that point, I'm not drawing well because I'm reaching across my keyboard. Maybe this is like a little like creepy little demon thing or something. No, that's not a good idea. Not a good idea. But you can see how like some of the corners feel dead. Like the things that are outside of frame they feel dead. Like there's nothing there. Is vacant, empty space. And I think adding something could do that. And for this one, what I was thinking you could add is like a storytelling element as to why this was spilt, I guess. Maybe like you could go crazy with this and it could get you more excited about work. I don't know really. But like what if you did a really weird thing like where there's just like this random tentacle reaching in from off this dark space or this vacuous space where you're like, what the fuck is going on? Maybe this little tentacle could be like, you know, trying to have a tea party with itself or something like that. Maybe it's like a first person thing and it's someone's got venom brain or something and they can control these tendrils or something. But like there's a little bit, I don't know, there's a little bit something for me that gets me more excited about this picture when there's random stuff added to it instead of it just being, this is an interior, everybody's done it, I'm doing it because that's what everybody's done, I don't really give a fuck about it, but I did it and it's done. I think your scale might be wonky here too. These apples are pretty, I don't know if they're big or small because stuff is such weird sizes. Sometimes just dropping in a default human can be really, really useful. Here we go. Okay, so I would say that this is almost okay. But once you have a point of reference, you can see, like, and then think about for yourself. If you were that tall, like, would you really want to bend over to get into your oven if it's already raised off the ground? Like, why not put it at your eye level or someone who's 5 foot tall, their eye level? And I'm not saying that this is to scale, but like, you know, if you started noticing that your countertops were too low because they're like at the guy's thighs instead of at his waist or even higher, depending on whose this place is for. But once you start comparing that to in relation how big he would be where at in the scene, but once you make a 3D model of this guy and you have him in your scene, it'll help those kinds of issues. I don't know if they're a thing. I think that you have a lot of skylights going on, but in real houses there's not that many skylights. They do look cool, but in order to have a skylight, it takes a lot of never mind. It doesn't matter. I don't know. There's stuff in this that is kind of cool, but it definitely needs something else. It needs something else. Let's go back. Okay, minimal office. This is okay, but it's like very, I don't want to say minimal because minimal isn't so boring, if that makes sense, and if that sounds harsh, I'm sorry. This one, like, focal point is kind of the painting. All these lines are leading toward the painting in perspective. But this, I think, is Miro, and I don't know if he did paintings that big. Maybe he did. Maybe I could be wrong. My art history could be way off. But I'm assuming that this painting is like, 18 by 9 feet or something like that. It's very, very large. 18 by 10 feet or something. So it's missing that scale. Let's copy this, make a new one, paste it in. I'm going to put this guy in here. Okay, so if he's standing on the back wall, that's just an extra one to have. This Photoshop thing is killing me. Okay. So the only thing to base your reference of sizes on is the couch. Everything else is kind of otherworldly and you can't tell how big it should be, which causes problems, causes lots of problems. So this ceiling, I assume it's almost, what is that? But it ends up dwarfing everything else, and there'll be details at buildings as to how to help fix that and not have it feel like you're being dwarfed, unless you're supposed to feel dwarfed. Like at a church, when you go to church, you're supposed to feel dwarfed. I don't really feel that. I feel rage. But in some buildings, when you walk in, they want you to feel like at home. So like at a hospital, they want you to feel comfortable and not this like sterile work environment where things happen. And this image is not really that sterile thing that's going on. But you could probably incorporate some of these other elements, and some of those are like hang down lights that light the wall. So just look at high, ceiling, office, anything. Like just get your brain looking at real stuff and you can start to see things. So let's go and look at some things with high ceilings. Okay, here we go. This one is a little bit similar. It's potato resolution, so let's not use that one. This one it doesn't have the walls go up to the ceiling, but it looks like yours would be about this, maybe not even this big, who knows. That's where just having the scale working for you helps fill in the rest of the crap a lot easier. Here you go. This is one of the things I was talking about, where I think this is a 3D render actually, so it's not great advice, but somebody else is doing it. Having these hang down lights inform the space to your brain, sort of, so it feels a little bit more, I don't know. It can do things, apparently. I don't know. I'm not an interior designer. I'm not a psychologist. But I think having some stuff way up high will fix some of your problems. It really will. This TV doesn't really seem like a TV because it probably should have glass and could be reflecting this painting. You might be going overboard in general with glossiness. Like there's nothing that has a pure reflection on any of your stuff other than some of the car things, and even those are glossy. Let's see here. Like this is a little magazine nook, but it just looks giant. It looks huge, and there's binders in there or something. I don't really know what they are. Like nobody has binders. These look like they're floating. Nobody has floating binders, that's for sure. This shelf, there's some whatever shit coming through the back, it looks like. But if you're gonna have a shelf, that means you gotta put shit on it. So you've got a lot of surfaces, and the only thing you have are these shitty magazines again, which aren't really helping make this space more interesting. You've got books here. Let's go look at the rest of these. You've just got books to have books, it feels like. I don't know. It feels weird. Like this is almost where the painting should go, or another painting. And I know that you have another painting texture map on that other file, and who cares if you're using it again. But you could start to lay them in and see what looks good. Like this might be good to have a diptych, 2 paintings, or a triptych, 3 paintings, or something. Because this blank wall just looks like garbage. It just looks really unfinished and really undone. There's accent walls. Like you could probably do something like that. That's just a wall that has something interesting on it to make the room stand out a little bit. So like, this room is mostly white. I guess it's not mostly white. I don't know. I'm just looking at these images for the first time. But they have different colors that work together. It could be all white, and then you have one wall that's colored. That's an accent wall. But like, look at this picture. Look at how much shit there is. And this is clean and minimal, in my opinion, almost. There's not like clothes. It's not messy. There's not, you know, dog toys laying all around or whatever is in your room. I don't know. Let's see here. But like you can see, what is this looking at? This picture is looking at a bed. It's very, very clear on what the subject matter of the photo is. Here is a painted wall or a wallpaper with a painting on it. You're looking at whatever. These are accent wall ideas, so that's what you're looking at. Whereas with these, it's like kind of, it's just kind of generic. It's really kind of generic. And some of that stuff you don't have to use 3D. I mean, this is maybe it would be easier to do in 3D, but after the fact, you're not bound by what you've done by any means. You have Photoshop, and Photoshop is your economical friend. I'm just using the magic wand and I'm trying to get, my apathy is increasing right now because I'm getting exhausted because this is way longer than I thought it would be. Oh, there you go. There you go. You know, there's just a little bit more going on that ties the room together, that makes the room a little bit more unique and memorable, that incorporates some of your artistic skills in, like, you know, there's a reason why the couch is this color. Maybe it's because that's what it was like when you downloaded it, but maybe you built it. I don't know because you didn't say. I'm going to assume that that's what it was when you downloaded it, but you can start to like make the rest of your room those colors, and it can kind of help it not feel so boring, I guess. I don't know. I don't think your work is that bad. It's not awful, that's for sure. You at least know how to get high settings on your renderer. Some people don't know how to do that. I'm just going to go through and do every picture, and people that complain about this video being long, you can turn it off whenever you want. No problem. I won't be offended. I won't even know. So I won't even care. Always wanted a car that can be customized as easily as I wish. It's not possible in real life. Modeling is the best way to achieve it. I love painting cars. Okay, so this is where I get most of the idea that you're maybe not even modeling that much stuff and you're just texturing, which is totally fine. I don't care. I'm not judging. I don't care. But you need to tell people what you did. Tell them what you did, because if they think that you're using plant simulators in the background and you're modeling everything and then it turns out that you can't do that work, then you're sad. Then it's a sad story. It's a sad time. You're like getting into HDRIs and some stuff, but it's just so, I don't want to say boring. Well, it is kind of boring. It's kind of boring. I'm sorry. This is good practice, but I don't know if people need to see this. I don't think this elevates your work above. Like, this is still the best shot because you got stuff going on. There's something happening other than just looking at an object. There's snow blowing in a foggy fish tank. So really what I would do is start either putting more stuff, but like, I don't know how Behance populates stuff. It's probably by date, so maybe this stuff is older and this is newer. So you're definitely getting better in my opinion, and I don't think you're really that bad. Amp wasn't a part of this project when I started, but the guitar looked too lonely, so I felt like I should quick model an amp. Okay, so that wording makes it sound like you modeled this, but you should straight up say, I modeled this using polygonal modeling and sub D blah blah blah, and like show a wireframe. This one would be good to show a wireframe, I would say. Okay, I'm gonna talk to you about this thing. Okay, so you are using depth of field in 3D Studio Max, it looks like, because copy image. Because when I zoom in here, I start seeing more and more grain. And then when it gets down to this blurry part, it's really, what's the word? Staccatic, I don't know. The algorithm is fine, but it doesn't really work. So on this one, what you could have done really easily is export the Z depth and then use that. Or you could just render out the guitar part or whatever. Blech. Words are failing me. And then put it on a real photo. Like, it looks still too 3D, and I have ideas why. But anyways, I'm going to show you how to use the camera blur in Photo fucking Shop, because it looks better and works better than the whatever. Convert for smart filters, that's what I'm looking for. Alright. Oh, where is this? The blur gallery. Okay, so I'm gonna click on, I made a duplicate of it and made one a smart layer. Filter, blur gallery. Okay, you could do it originally, but I like to make it a convert for smart filters because it lets me do this. So we're gonna do like this sort of a thing. Okay, and I'm going to just totally change the blurry part, but like you could have your whole thing in frame, in focus, and then bring it in here and adjust it much easier and get a much cleaner result. And these tools are cumbersome, they're not perfect, they're not great, but they're faster and they're interactive. So now I can apply that, and then at any time I can go and fiddle with it more by double clicking on it. It's not committed, so that's a good thing. Whereas if you do it on this layer, I'll just apply the thing again. And you can see it's got the same blur, but there's no way to change it after the fact. So that's why I convert for smart layers. It was a very subtle thing. It's blurred, unblurred, whatever. But when you have control over it and can change it, that's good. So with this, what I would say is just like once you render something, don't upload that render ever. Put it into Photoshop and see what it looks and feels like. Download a picture of a guitar, put it in that image and see if something looks right or wrong. So for this one, I would say that you could probably make an environment map for the entire room. You might have that, you might not. It just looks like it's chrome and it's reflecting whatever's nearest, but I'm not sure. I don't really know. You can always just put a curves on things. You can always do that. But you can see how drab this looks, sort of. Like nothing is pure white, nothing is pure dark. Just adding this can really help. Whether it's curves, exposure, levels, whatever you want to do, it depends really per image what I'm seeing. What else is there? You can, this is one thing that I like to do, is either do some lens correction stuff on my 3D render, because usually stuff is rendered with a flat frame. There's no distortion going on. And it's better to do, I don't know if it's better or worse. I usually render stuff flat and put the distortion in later in After Effects, because it gives me control, and if someone says, oh, it's too distorted, I don't want that much, then I don't have to re-render all of my 3D stuff. Let's see here. So, custom, here we go. So maybe instead of removing distortion, which is what this application was built for, this plugin, you could introduce it. Maybe the grid is confusing you and it's not looking as good, or whatever. But you can see how distorting this is, altering the shape of the lens. It's doing a bunch of different stuff, but you also have control over things like you can introduce chromatic aberration instead of taking it out, which is I don't want to say it's going to help you, but it might be one of those extra bullshitty things that everybody else does and you want to start doing too. That's totally fine. If you want to put a vignette in there, that's fine. A dark vignette or a light vignette. I think this looks better with a light vignette. Like, play with the midpoint of that. So what I'm trying to do right now is just make this look like a bad photograph that, like, a 7th grader in their first photography class, they get an assignment of like, take a picture of your favorite thing, which is pretty much the same assignment as make a 3D model of your favorite thing. It's about the same thing because they end up with the same result, in my opinion. So I'm going for that kind of. But I'm also just trying to make it look a little bit more natural. So when I was talking about not having everything straight, that's what this vertical transform is doing. You can see that it's moving this line to be tilted so that it looks like the guitar is tilting toward me, the top of it, just to make it look less like perfect. Less perfect. Okay. Beautiful. Okay. I'll great. This is great. Okay. So now let's put the original right on top and turn it on. Bow, 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 bow. Okay, things to notice. I'm not saying that mine's the best. I'm not saying it's pure killer, awesome, it rules, blah, blah. I'm not saying that at all. But I would say that it looks a little bit more realistic because it's incorporating these camera defects that are present and that people have gotten used to. One of them that people have gotten used to is usually there's a white point on your picture. So having an actual white is super, super important. On here, if I do select color range and I do highlights with 0 fuzziness. Okay, these are the pixels that are pure white. There's hardly any. And if you start growing it, you can see it. But really, in my opinion, your highlights should be on the thing you're supposed to be looking at. And so what I'm kind of looking at here is the logo. That's kind of like my goal of this, my version of your render. So this is where I want it to be color calibrated to that. So anything that's not the logo that is white could probably be blown out all the way to white, if that makes sense. Maybe it doesn't. I don't know. I'm not a good teacher. So for this, I didn't care that this got brighter on the edge. I didn't care that this went more white and this went more white, or that this down here, you can see that the detail on the fretboard or whatever it's called, the pickup, you lose the detail. I don't care about that. I was mostly going for keeping this as the center of attention. I don't care that this is unreadable or whatever. But I do think that this looks more realistic than this. And sometimes more realistic means looks better, but sometimes not. But I think I'm done with this example. This is a good model, I'd say. It's pretty darn good. I don't see tons of things wrong with it. I could try to pick on it if you wanted me to, but sometimes there's no need. Yeah, I think this looks better to me. But get in Photoshop. Get in Photoshop. Use Photoshop more. Use After Effects more. Whatever you want to use. I'm gonna do your whole fucking portfolio because I don't give a fuck. The amp, it's not really featured ever, so I can't say too much about it. This wall is horseshit. Like, it looks bad. You may as well just like go on the stock image site, close, and type in the word wood wall, and use a photograph. Like, there's no reason to, I don't know. You're not adding any value to your picture. It looks kind of bad. It looks kind of like the floor. This cord feels really skinny. It feels super skinny. I don't know if that's true. It could not. It's all about checking your scale. Like, this cord is almost as thick as the deepest note chord string. That's what they're called. I think you could just really crop this thing in. Let's. Your compositions are kind of not great, which is fine. You're a beginner. But when you come into Photoshop, see crop tool, you get a basic default. The most default, like, basic composition tip is the, like, point of interest, and it's usually here, 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 or here, like in one of these 4 spots. So you want to, like, lend all of your information to that. So I'm going to crop this way in because most of the photo is really just the wall, which looks kind of dumb. I don't know. Composition's super important, but really you don't want to confuse people. That's like the most basic thing, is don't confuse people if they don't know what they're supposed to look at. If something's supposed to be most important, make them look at that. So for us, it's the guitar. The Fender, you said yourself, is an afterthought. It's not that important. It's not gonna be whatever. I do like what's going on here in the reflection. Let's do something like this. I still feel like it should be rotated or something. Kind of like on Wayne's World when Garth goes to the drum store and there's like a angelic heavenly light onto the drum set that he wants. But like here, there's no, just paint that shit out, confusion about what you're looking at. You're looking at a goddamn guitar. Great. That's good. We're not confusing the audience. That's what we want. Don't do what I just did. Start dropping stuff just because you think it's going to help. Sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't. Okay, so this, there's no confusion what you're looking at. It's a guitar and an amp. I don't know what you think about it, but I think it looks much better. And once you have this set up, you can bring this into this file. Oh yeah, brighten it up a little bit. That's great. Love it when you brighten stuff up. Looks so wonderful. Filter, convert for smart filters. Okay. Filter, lens correction. And we're not correcting a lens, we're gonna break the lens. So I want it to bulge out or push in. Let's do a push in. I'm gonna fringe the fuck out of it. I think these values can't be the same. Alright, and I'm gonna vignette the fuck out of it. But you can see even how just having a vignette helps fix your original image where it just isn't so boring. There's something happening. All right. I think I might tilt it the other way. Okay, let's call that good. Okay, so now we've got some more pixels to work with here, sort of. Oh, well, now if it's a smart object, you can't paint it until you double click into it. But yeah, that looks better. I'd say that looks better. Don't be worried about, like, this looks like it went to white. It's still not white. RGB, it's still not anywhere near white. Let's get white. Let's paint some white. This is white. Isn't that crazy? I don't think anything is blowing out to white, actually. Maybe some of the highlights, who knows? Maybe, but I would lean into your whites. Like, have whites, have blacks. Like, this looks black. Oh, we got some black. Yeah, we got some black going. Great, great, great. At least we're hitting our contrast points. But now this looks a little bit better than this to me. Let's see here. Okay. Model wise, let's talk about model. Real world, whatever. If you have a guitar, I don't know if you would be ever putting it near sharp metal like this. That's why these edges have these caps. So maybe like make some little caps that go on that little bad boy, like pew, pew, little rubber things. But it'll also introduce some varying materials on your object, which can be good. This one's pretty good, I'd say. I don't know. It looks a little green overall, the whole thing. Curves, green. I'm gonna take green out. Sometimes adding it, taking it out. I'm gonna lower it, lower it, lower it. Blue. No, I'm not happy with those changes. It looks green to me, and that's why I like color balance, because you can change these things. It looks green in the highlights. So if I don't want green, I want more magenta. And usually I go like way far, and I go the other way, and then I go where I think it looks good. And you can see I do about -9, who knows? And this is not color correct, so it doesn't really matter. Kind of looks like you're just using a bump map and not a diffuse map. That's fine, who cares? But you could probably make wood panels. You could like, what's the word? Like a spotlight effect. And I probably do things way wrong because I'm an old Photoshopper and I don't have the right tools or practice, and I just do what I know works. There you go. You're just giving the people more of what they want. Don't look at anything else. Look at here. Like, and you could do that in 3D. It could be there the whole time. It could be casting a shadow on the wall. All those different things can really help fix this unfinished image. I want to see something though. Okay, so this is like the main white part of your image, I would say. And you can see that it's almost gray, or I mean, it's a middle value. It's not even like 75% or anything all the way at 100. But getting something to that 100 point is super, super important. I mean, it's fine to let your highlights be there, but something of your main body, I'd say. I don't know. Everything just feels really dark on all of your renders. Really dark. So dark. So dark that I think you're depressed. I started this one to challenge myself about creating textures and materials. All the photographs are taken by an iPhone camera in daily life. You can see raw photographs and textures converted from these photos. So if these were converted, explain what programs you used. This is an okay introduction, but just say, I wanted to experiment translating some real world textures into 3D Studio Max. Took the pictures with an iPhone, processed them in Photoshop, bitmap to material or whatever they're called, substance painter. You know, there's tons of different things. But I think this is a decent study, but like, you know, you could pay it forward. You could say, download them here, download the samples here. This one I think is pretty good. I would remove platforms. Like, I wouldn't say my Android phone, my iPhone, my Canon DLSR. I just say I took these pictures myself with a camera phone. I manipulated them in this program. Here are the textures. But I think this is pretty good. This one doesn't quite have, it seems like it should have a level of displacement for the bricks. I like this material. This looks really good. This one looks pretty good too. I like how some of the wood is shiny and some of it is not. But I kind of have a feeling that all of this is coming from the program that you're using, where it's doing all that under the hood work. And that's totally fine. Just be honest. Be honest, because it makes people think that you don't know what's going on in a way. It makes me think you don't know what's going on. Okay, I was thinking that the balls are great objects to create an exhibition of texturing and UV unwrapping skills. So this is how it started. Okay, so this one, I don't know. This one overall, you say that you did unwrapping and texturing, but you didn't show that. You just showed the final results. So, like, show your UVW editor. Take a screenshot of it. Like, let's see. Unwrap UVW. You can open this thing up. You can have your textures in there. You can use the snipping tool. And you can make something. And you can save this and say, this is what it looks like. These are the textures I used. I used multi-sub-object, blah, blah, blah. I used mapping channels. I used all this stuff. And however many materials you use. But, like, there's not enough information in this to explain anything. And, like, I don't think these are funny, the titles, really. I would just maybe say, like, no judgments. It's fine. You can have it say whatever you're going to have it say, but you're not helping yourself by having these cheeky titles. I think that your teacher probably said get a Behance thing going and make a portfolio and do XYZ. And you did those, like, I don't want to say bare minimum steps, but you did those steps kind of resenting the fact of what you're supposed to be doing, and that's fine. That's fine. I still resent everything. I resent when I pay my taxes or have to, like, put my garbage out on the curb or walk the dog or whatever, but I do it because that's what you do. And for this, what you've got to do is you've got to up your game. You got to be more personable, be someone that that people want to be around. So I would just go through, if it's not something that you want to show your mom, maybe don't have it on there, or your grandma, or someone you respect. Like, think of someone that you super, super respect and would love to work for or with, or under or whatever, and play to them. Like, try to impress them just with your words. And if you can't impress them with your words, just, like, be straightforward. Say, textured soccer balls. Oh, cool. No problem. Anyways, let's look at this. This is still all going back to your Photoshop, like, deficiencies, I don't know, over reliance on 3D Studio Max. Like, it still just feels like you're uploading renders, which I don't know if you are, but that's what it looks like. For this one, I'm going to try to just increase the exposure. Oh, suddenly we can see it. We can suddenly see it, and it looks much better than what you've posted has. I don't give a fuck that this blew out to white and that we lost detail in the clouds, because this picture is not about the fucking clouds. It's about the texturing job that you did on these balls that you've got. It's not about the grass. It's not about this. It's not about that. It doesn't really matter. But, like, brighten it up. All your stuff is so dark, no one's going to want to see it. Oh, what the fuck is going on here? Color mode. All right. Oh, bleh, I'm right there. I'm stupid. I'm so stupid. Okay, so I'm going to turn off exposure just to show you. While I understand that you want to show highlights, you want to show the bump map, you want to show this, you want to show that, that's fine. But when the brightest part of your image is still like it's only 75%, it's really going to bring down your overall realism, which is what your whole portfolio seems to be building toward. And you should just let stuff be real. And when things are real, they get blown out, and people can see the bump map and texture maps and everything else in a slightly different part of the ball. This is the same as this, so it doesn't really matter. I don't think you're losing any detail. This one you could probably do a little bit of a rotation, like anything other than perfectly straight. Like, you can just feel it sometimes that it's not quite what it should be. So brightening this one up has fixed a lot of the problems that I had with it. I think that if you do this whole crappy thing again, it's not crappy. It's really, really great, and you should really, really use it. Everyone should use it, because it helps take a render into a little bit more realistic area. I am kind of liking the chromatic aberration that is being introduced. It's very subtle. You don't really see it too much. Alright, so if you were wanting your ball to look larger than life, you could, like, shift this. It's like, oh, it looks like that's the main focus. But when it's way down here, you can see that more than half your image is not your main subject, which is, it's fine. You can keep doing it that way. But you might get better results by doing it another way. Just rotating that kind of feels better. I'm gonna make it look a little bit more majestic. Oh, here you go. Here you go. It's got a little rotation thing. I wish it was more subtle. Set the image rotation. I wonder if there's a better way to do it. -10. -10. -5. Scale. Yeah, that's what you want. You want to show more of the ball, less of the environment. Sure, let's try that. Blam. Okay, so let's put this on top. Your original. Well, this is not the original because it's not straight, but it doesn't matter. This looks better, in my opinion. It looks better. But yeah, people don't know what you really did until you show your UVW map that you're talking about. It's confusing. Let's say this, I would call this more of an artistic shot, but it doesn't feature your texturing skills the best. So I put this one at the end this at the very end, this one in the middle, and this one first. So I would reverse the order, but go through these and redo them in Photoshop. Blow this one up, copy the image, do a new, pasting it here. Okay, again, and I know that this is like, it's not super sunny out, but your eyes and what a camera would do is it wouldn't really see this orangey light, I don't think. I don't think it would. Maybe it would. Depends on what your white balance is set at. But I still think that it would be like, oh fuck man, it's super bright out. It's super bright. I can hardly see things. It's so bright. I don't know, but it's more... I don't know. It looks better to me. Looks better to me. Whoa. 0. Gamma. I don't know. This looks better to me. I could just be crazy. Who knows anymore? I'm definitely crazy. Filter, blur, Gaussian blur. Yeah, let's do this. And then let's put this as... There we go. If it's too big, lower the fill. And sure, this looks like they're glowing now or whatever. But you can just... I think you can even just lower the opacity of this adjustment layer. If you group these, you can turn them both off at once. But like, there's so much detail in a 3D render that's not being seen because it's so dark. Like, there's no sense in that. There's no sense in rendering in depth of field. There's no sense in using global illumination if you can't see the light bounces. There's not a sense of a lot of things. I think this looks better. Maybe you don't, and that's totally fine. That's totally fine. I'm gonna convert for smart, and it's just being converted so you could, or I can adjust it later. Lens correction. For this one, I want to put a dark vignette on. Just to show. So sometimes with vignettes, like if you want it to be dark or you want it to be light, if you want it to be dark, you're usually trying to zero someone's attention in, and if you make it be light, then you're kind of like implying a world that's beyond the frame. Where it kind of works with this one. It's a case by case basis. You don't really know until you try. I like the darker one personally, but it's probably too dark. Who knows? I'm going over the top so things are visible in video. Ugh, let me get resituated here. Okay, so I think this looks better than that. Maybe you agree, maybe you don't. This is extra dark because it's got the vignette, but I don't really care. Okay, let's keep going. So yes, fix these in Photoshop and redo the order, and you can repost this project. This is a good one, I would say. This one, out of material, everyone would like to have some loneliness sometimes, just like this curtain covers the sun. Okay. This is not bad. Not bad at all. Not bad at all. Peace. May 31st, 2018. This is the one that I got confused with the kitchen one, because this is the one where I was thinking it would be like, no judgments if you are depressed. frustrated or whatever with 3D Studio Max, not having a job, everybody's there, honestly. Whether you have a full-time job, you work freelance, or you're trying to get a job, it sucks. But anyways, I think this one is cool because like you're opening up a little bit, but there's this mirror that allows for, I don't know what the word would be, just injecting some storytelling into your render, which is cool, and I think you should lean into it and use it. So this is the one where in my brain, I was like, oh yeah, sorry if the microphone gets loud. It would be really cool if, like, instead of talking about these frustrations or just hinting at them in the caption or whatever, if you kind of like, you could just make any little weird thing. If you source from the image, let me make a new layer so we can turn it on and off. But like, you know, in the back corner, there's just this like creepy little thing. That's way too blurry. Maybe, who knows? Who knows what it is? Who knows what it isn't? Nobody knows. But it's like, you know, just a subtle thing. This one I think could benefit a lot from a reframe. There's nothing going on over here other than this picture. So you could probably move the picture right here and just like crop all of this in closer and almost make it, not that I'm trying to hijack your picture or anything. I'm just trying to give it more of a purpose. So you want your stuff that you're interested in to land on these things, sort of. Let's just try it and see. Blur's not blur anymore. It hasn't been for a long time. I don't know. I like weird stuff like that. I really like weird stuff like that. Let's see here. This, honestly, like, it's the last picture in your portfolio, or last project, but this is what made me respond to this whole thing, because it's like, just having a mirror in there, I think, has done interesting things for your visual storytelling, perhaps, which maybe you're not thinking of right now. I know I wasn't thinking about it at that early stage of my life, but the older I am, the more I know that I wish I had, because you can use that to get you much further than modeling your ass off or getting really good at X or Y. It takes much more work. But if you are unique, you can do stuff very quickly. But this one would almost be more appropriate to do your daytime, nighttime thing, where it's like, what does make something feel lonely? What does make something feel happy or sad or whatever? Because overall with the red light, it's kind of happy in a way. Maybe not, I don't know. I don't know. I like this project a little bit more. It feels more Hitchcockian or something almost. I don't know. I still think it's too dark. You can brighten it up a little bit. But I know you're wanting it to be dark. It's about covering the sun in a lot of ways. But this weird little stuff that you could do is what I would be excited about. This one, like, again, same stuff where it's all straight on, which is fine. This one's almost Kubrick though, because it could be telling a story. It has like a throwback vibe to it. But let me actually do this. Oops. Rectangle, feather it by 15 pixels, and let's grab this, and let's move it over here. Oops, I'm gonna copy. Oops. Saying oops a lot, huh? That's kind of bullshit. Like, why can this guy give me advice if he's saying oops so much? Clear. Flip horizontal. Okay. Only reason I'm doing that is just so you can get rid of it. So the light coming in is starting to take main focus. The other focus is going to be this table over here. Where, since we're using 3D, we can do whatever we want. The camera can stay static. We can set up different things and do different renders. Maybe you could start thinking about different passes and do something like this, where something is only visible in the reflection of another object, but it's not actually there in the real render. So if you're talking about, this is again personifying those things you're talking about. I might have been talking in the microphone the wrong size, and I'm sorry. But let's make a new layer. Let's make this little guy again. This guy is you, this guy is me, this guy is every person who uses 3D. Where they're like, oh, they don't want to see the light anymore. They're so tired. I want to have shape dynamics. Fuck, why is this not 100%? Oh, this stupid button. But you could almost do it so subtle that nobody notices it. Because it is, not that it's an afterthought, but we're adding meaning where it was not before, which is what I do for all of my YouTube videos really late in them. Great, okay. Lock transparency. That is pure black, alright, very dark. Oh yeah, something like that, where it's like, oh, what is going on in this picture? I don't understand what's going on in this picture. I'm gonna steal this exposure setting. But yeah, on this one I think darker is better. I want the sun to be more bright, is what I'm doing here. Gradient tool, make a mask, default colors. Here we go. So the glow's only in this area. But, you know, oops. That I think is kind of cool, where it's like, oh yeah, you're telling a story. You're using the scene, you're using the capabilities of the program, and you're making something a little weird. I don't know. A little weird, a little unique, a little something different than what you have been making. Hey, come on. Oh, lock transparency. That's, I think, why. Yeah. Something like that. Who knows? Who knows? But it's something. It's something other than this, where it's kind of personifying it. Other people that watch this will probably see something and be like, wow, you really roasted that guy. Why did you spend so much time? You're disorganized. Why didn't you keep typing points? It's just because I want to encourage you to keep making stuff. I think you're doing a good job. I think you should use Photoshop more. I think you should use photo references more. Check real world examples, real world scale. Make sure things aren't too big or too small. Stop doing everything in pure 3D because you're going to waste so much time. You're going to wish that you hadn't when you could just use a photograph. Explain what you did to people because it can really help them understand what your capabilities are, what your weaknesses are, where you want help. I know that English isn't your main language, it seems like, but don't give up. Keep making stuff. Email people. Private message them. Keep partaking in things. I like your name, Blicksmath. It's like a blacksmith, but different. I'm gonna render this video. I'm not gonna edit it. It's gonna be really rough, I'm sorry. But don't be so upset that you're asking to be roasted to validate how bad you feel about yourself. Be proud of what you've done so far and keep pushing yourself forward. Good work. If you or anyone you know would like to be roasted, just email me at kaloglesby@gmail.com.